Can you briefly introduce yourself, your role, and Western Copper and Gold, please?
Sure. I'm Sandeep Singh. I'm the CEO of Western Copper and Gold. We have a large copper gold porphyry, large copper gold deposit in Yukon, Canada, that we're moving through the permitting phase.
What are some of the key projects or strategic initiatives currently underway at Western Copper and Gold?
So as I mentioned, our key focus right now is permitting the project. We're in a permitting in Canada, permitting and mining in general is a long endeavor, but it's one where we think we have a large prize at the end of it. So we already have a project that has a current feasibility study on it. So we've done a lot of the science, a lot of the work in terms of defining what the project is. And we have a very large resource. We have 3.6 billion tons of copper and gold. 27 years of that is in a mine plan, and that's only using a third of the resource. So as I said, very large resource in a good jurisdiction that we believe is very viable, even using long-term prices. And 360 copper and $1,700 gold. When you start updating it for more current pricing, the optionality is huge. So right now our focus is on pushing that through the environmental assessment phase, environmental and socioeconomic assessment phase. And that's what we're doing at present.
As industry leader, what do you consider Western Copper and Gold's most impactful achievement, and how has it shaped your vision for the future?
Look, I think starting, I guess I would start with just finding something that is this significant. World class gets thrown around a little bit too loosely. I describe our project as globally significant, and that's evidenced by the fact that it's gotten endorsements, strategic investments by Rio Tinto 5 separate times, and Mitsubishi Materials. Two of the smartest names in the copper business with respect to Mitsubishi. I think it's the first and only time they've invested in the equity of a junior company. So finding something this significant is step one. Maybe a little bit further how we got to where we are now. So first off, in the decade that was the 2010s, I would argue it was a story of preserving value. That was a decade where big copper projects, believe it or not in vogue. Copper prices were dropping from 450 to 250. In the middle of the decade, there were some pretty significant tailings dam failures around the world, Mount Poly, Samarco. So it wasn't a good time to have a junior company with a big project. But nonetheless, the company preserved value during those years, advanced technically, did a lot of good things technically. And then in the last several years, I would say it was a story of kind of value creation. Once funding was more available, we put that funding to good use, doubled the M&I resource. So basically got to a very long mine life, as I said earlier, 27 years in a mine plan, but we think it could go a lot longer than that. And also in that span, drilled out the core zone, the higher grade zone, which leads to a 3.5-year payback roughly of this very long life asset. So that combination of things over that time frame, I would say, is what's put us in good stead.
What opportunities do you see in the market right now that could lead to future growth for your company?
Well, look, I think for us, it's unique. Well, maybe not overly unique, but it's we already have a very important asset. We have an asset that, depending on the numbers you use for gold, copper, your timelines, et cetera, you can get to multi-billion dollars of NAV very easily. And frankly, that's not the right metric to use when you think of these long life assets, because we're discounting a lot of our future years, but still very important asset. As I said, globally significant, it's attracted some of the majors in the space, yet we're trading at 0.1 times that fundamental value. So our job is to unlock that value through de-risking, and we're funded to do so. In terms of, and that's the biggest prize that we see for investors right now, trading at, say, less than 0.1 times of that NAV. If we can get the project to, say, the environmental assessment phase over the next 3 years, and be trading closer to 0.6 or 0.7 times NAV, which I think conservatively is realistic. At the same time as the underlying NAV grows, because the commodity prices we use grow over time, that's a pretty massive potential win for shareholders, and that's what we're focused on unlocking. There are other ancillary things we can do with our project. We're still open at depth. We haven't found the bottom of that high grade core. There are still other anomalies on the land package we want to get after. But that's the biggest prize we see in front of us at the moment.
What are the biggest challenges currently in the mining industry, and how is Western Copper and Gold addressing them?
It's the mining industry, so there are many. I would say in our phase, like in the development phase, development companies, one of the biggest challenges is just raising capital, just having sufficient capital to do what you need to do. I think we've seen more and more over the years. It's a world of haves and have-nots. The gap between people that have money and can raise money and those that don't have it and can't raise it continues to widen. We're in a very fortunate position that we have an extremely strong shareholder base and a strong currency. So we have or strong balance sheet, excuse me. We have very loyal, supportive shareholders that have been with us for a long time. In the spring, we were able to expand that group. We went out to raise $25 million, ended up raising almost around about 50 with basically new names to kind of grow the tent of people that care about Western copper and gold. So currently we sit with a balance sheet at the end of the last quarter, 77 million Canadian, gives us years of runway in front of us to do what we need to do. So we're in a pretty enviable position. But I would say that in the development space is one challenge. The lack of capital, and then that often leads companies to have to dilute themselves excessively to do what they're planning, to meet their strategic objectives. And thankfully, we're not in that position.